Good morning and happy 2025. This is episode 1 of the new year.
Numero uno.
Yes, and we're welcoming Rob Palowitz. Rob, how did you make it to number 1?
Thank you. Well, I'm number 1 in everyone's hearts, and I guess I just was fortunate to be the first one you want to talk to in 2025. So I'm very happy to be here and appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. Yeah. We love you.
Yeah, we love you. Been many years.
It has. Do you want to do a little intro first? Brandon, how do you know Rob?
Oh my gosh. So let's see, how did this story start? I think it was Troy Burry, Rob Palowitz walked into a bar. No.
That was after we met.
So Valley Leadership Group would have been maybe 2003, 2004. And it's been that way ever since. Yeah. Pretty much staying together and helping each other grow with Palo Creative and various brands that you've helped us create over the years, which has been pretty great. All from a mailroom with a Pitney Bowes machine, a newsletter.
Oh, right.
Remember that back in the day?
That's
First
right.
Metropolitan Mortgage.
Yeah, we did some personalized newsletters and mailers for his first when he had his first mortgage business going. And, it was using an older tactic that, it's things kind of ebb and flow. And they're there, and then they come back, and then they take a break. And at that time, it was working well, using that tactic to reach out to, existing contacts and past contacts. And
were these print newsletters or were these email newsletters?
No, it was personalized. Personalized.
2004.
And even back then, content. Okay. Content is a big thing.
Mailing newsletters?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, print newsletters.
Pre-King.
Yeah. And it worked. It worked well. You got to spend efforts and take time with things that can obviously propagate interest and help you grow, help you expand.
Yeah.
And that was one that we utilized.
Before we get too far into it, what do you do, Rob?
Well, hello, I am Rob Palowitz. I am president, CEO, founder of Palo Creatives. This is our 25th year. We're going to go into our 26th year of being in business. Started the business from my home, back in November of 1999. And, that was my first gutsy move, was taking that full time, especially when you already have a full-time job. But started out as a catalog kind of boutique design. I'm a graphic designer by trade, I guess, and that's what I started with. I was doing freelance design. That's how I started the business, and but always loved business and learning how people operate, how people make money, how they run their business. That's been something that I've always enjoyed, and so it became less about design for me and more about interacting with fellow business owners, fellow entrepreneurs. See how they activate and execute an idea, and try and pull what I can from that, and being a sponge and learn along the way. But now present day, we're a digital agency, web design, digital marketing, SEO, paid search,
full ad agency.
Yeah, full ad. And the other thing that makes us unique is we're a HubSpot partner, which is a CRM, a very powerful CRM that we help our clients utilize. We customize and help them build a sales enablement scenario and sales process for their business. So it's more about being that partner and having a relationship rather than a vendor.
Yeah, you've got some big accounts in the Valley too.
Yeah, we've done pretty well with some nice accounts here, locally, regionally, and nationally. So, some aerospace companies, big manufacturers. Werner Lauder's been a client, Parker Hannifin, and many other.
What's going on in Louisiana right now? Something going on down there?
What, Louisiana? Well, actually, it was
or is it Mississippi?
Georgia. It was Georgia. Yeah, so we acquired assets of a web business. Guy wanted to retire, real nice fella there. I met, we knew each other in the industry, and he reached out to me and said, "Hey, I like what you have going on. Let's talk if you have interest." And that was one way. Another gutsy move was to acquire the assets of that company, and very specific. For me, I'm trying to be very intentful with our strategy and our approach. And be more specific in verticals, and that way we have a little more dedication of resources to to sink into that vertical and know more about it and be able to help those entities or companies in those specific verticals. And yeah, we try to keep it, where we're not going to have any conflicts and whatnot. But with that, you sometimes have some scenarios where you're going to help a fellow competitor of a client in essence. But it's funny how, like restaurants, for example, when we did a lot restaurant marketing here in town, everyone has a different approach or different goals, different KPIs that they want to achieve. And, so even though they're trying to get people in the door to, to eat the food off the menu, they all want to approach it a different way. And so that's how that works, so we have different plans, customized strategy with intent and approach with each, different client. And we're always going to come back to something I came up with back in 06, 07, something like that, for the acronym BRAND: be repetitive and never deviate. And that's something that we try to utilize as much as possible on consistency is basically the gist of it. As well.
So say that acronym again,
Be repetitive and never deviate. BRAND. So, and I know Brandon loves, he's one of my biggest fans of that acronym because he uses it quite a bit, which I love it. Actually, he pushes me to
Did he steal
me.
your acronym?
No, he borrows it. That's all right.
So the biggest question that I have for you working with Brandon is, do you ever just get exhausted by his endless ideas of this and that? Because even just this morning, I didn't even have a cup of coffee yet.
Right.
And he was like a puppy at my knee, like, look what I found. Look what I found. Look what I found. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
like,
that's
whoa.
Yeah, that's the
Coffee
excitement.
first.
That's the excitement of being in business and being excited about business. And it's great. You got to have that energy. I mean, it's tough to have a business. I mean, especially as long as he's been on his own, and as long as I've been on his own, and you're getting up there too now, being with your group, with the creative ones. It's very tiring. So you need something to inspire you and keep you motivated and active. And a lot of times, even for an owner, even for a president and CEO, you need that punch in the arm sometimes.
Well, we have Brandon Davis.
Yeah. And so it's, when I hear that excitement, from a friend or a client, whatever, buddy client, there we go. I was going to do t-shirts, buddy client. buddy client. But, no, when I hear that, then it makes me excited. When you have people around you, like I've seen signs before, being polite or being nice is contagious. And that's something. Being positive is contagious. Because the opposite is also contagious, and you don't want that. And it's like you wake up in the morning, you have two ways you can go. You can go positive, you can go negative. So many people go negative, and I don't know why. You have a choice to wake up and say, hey, I'm happy to be alive. I'm going to breathe some air, look at the sun, look at the birds chirping, a little mindfulness, stare at, bee humming on a flower, stuff like that. It's just amazing what life is. And it's just some people want to bring people down. And I think, unfortunately, social media makes it easy for people to hide and, be, what do they call it? Typewriter or keyboard warriors, what I mean? And not face anyone. And it's like, well, wake up and be positive. That's what we want to do.
So I watched, like minds. We surround ourselves with the same type of thought process. And so that, is infectious.
Adding to that, I was watching a YouTube video and reading an article which got me to the YouTube video about the psychology of optimism and pessimism, or positivity and negativity. And the question was, and I don't remember the exact percentages, but there were some studies done, and the study was a comparison between positive talk and negative talk, and what has a bigger impact on propelling you forward with mindset. And the question was, is it more positive talk or less negative talk?
No.
What do you think the answer is?
Well, positive, of course.
It's completely the opposite way. If you have less negative talk, you automatically play in the more optimistic space.
Yeah.
And so and I thought the same. And I was reading and I thought, holy mackerel. So every time you start to get into this mode, whether it be complaining or you're irritable or whatever the circumstance may be, if you move out of that, less negative talk and you get right back, even if it's neutral, it's much better and you'll perform more towards the optimistic state. And that's the power of being positive, but not just positive. It's so much less negative. Pretty crazy, right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I guess I have to agree with that too, because if you're not around that negativity, again, I've been trying to take moves and not be around negativity. You're forced to be, more positive and have an optimistic look. So, otherwise just watch some SpongeBob and that'll really make you, I'm ready. He's always ready.
Well, I got to tell you, for 20 years now, going on 21, 2 decades of being able to hang out, talk personally. We just had a little Quinvestors moment at Club Pigeon, which is the little cove at the house, and talking a little bit with some potential investors for the fund, and being able to just do all of that, and it's natural. And to be part of a space where you can mingle with other people, like we said, that are like-minded and positive. Not all of them are going to invest in the fund, but it was really easy. It's a close-knit group, and had a lot of good questions going on with what you've been instrumental with branding the fund, Quinvestors, the logo, the colors, everything about it. The brand guide is native to what you helped us develop. Obviously, we're part of the brainstorm behind it, but the finished product and how it interfaces with everything else we do is a testament to being repetitive and never deviating.
And I like it. You got the merch going, and it's all consistent.
I wanted you to see what you developed, but not me. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, in part, I've been part of the making of brands, being around it, all the time. But no, it's. You have a lot of good ideas, and that's what, entrepreneurial spirit is you gotta, it's one thing to come up with the idea, but it's the other thing to implement the idea.
It's the hardest thing.
That's the hardest thing and actually, be honest with you, that's a thing sometimes I struggle with. It's like, oh my gosh, I have a ton of ideas, want to get rolling with them, but it's like, you need a team. That's where, companies, bigger brands, bigger companies have teams underneath them to help with that implementation. So, so we try to, implement as many new things as we can each year. We look back each year, and see, how we've grown and what we've learned each year. So,
buying, selling, or investing, we are the Creative Ones. Visit us at creativeones.com. And so 2025.
Here we are.
What are some marketing trends? What do you foresee? And this is a little selfish. Yeah. What should I be doing as a business owner?
Well,
free advice.
Free advice. Here we go. Content. We got to give that content out. No, I think what we're seeing, it's less about things being in silos and more about you have content and you're going to distribute it on a certain platform or media. So you make that content and you make it available and format it in a way where it could be distributed on social media platforms. It could be in a blog. It could be, just a page on your website. But you have those different platforms and channels. That way, utilize a version for streaming radio, what have you. But I think the digital product line. I hear more conversations with SEO now. People are starting to grasp and understand that now. The localized SEO, when you look at your Google business profile, especially probably for you being more localized with your business, making sure you're actually looking in there and checking your reviews and updating your content, your about information. You can make custom information there. It's like a microsite, so you can make custom pages or services you can fill out within the platform of Google business profile. So that's something, that's an easy one because it doesn't cost you anything.
Do you think it matters if I have 100 reviews or 200 or 500? Is there a method to the number more than, a certain amount? Does it even matter after a certain amount?
Well, listen, no one can figure out the Google algorithm on how they rate things. At 1 minute we think, well, the more reviews you have, you're more relevant you are, you're going to have some advantage, But again, it depends on where someone's doing the, a realtor near me, or realtor in Salem. It depends on what
they're searching.
Right. And it's very similar to AI. So AI is going to be another trend, that started and is just it's rolling. It's rolling very fast. But when you do a search in AI, it's about what they call the prompt. So you have to ask the right question is what it means, or put the right phrase together to query back the options or the result you want. Yeah, the result you want. So or that may be the best fit. But looking at those things, that first tip.
You should also practice that in the real world. Sometimes you don't get the answer because you didn't ask the right question.
I've had someone very wise in my wife, tell me it's not about what you say, it's how you say it. So
that is very true.
Yes. So it's very similar to the AI prompt. You got to ask the right question in a right tone, I guess, because you can pick tone.
A class to master asking questions the right way.
Somehow I hear Krista saying that, right?
Yeah.
Well, you didn't ask it right.
Right. You didn't ask it right. You didn't say it right.
So what are some challenges for you when you're trying to create people with it, create their business, help them with their business, brand awareness, SEO, like what's your...
Well, I guess too, like I mentioned about HubSpot, people understanding their sales process, even us, we're constantly working on a sales process because it has to be nimble, and like, let's take, for instance, manufacturers. We work with a lot of manufacturing company. They are very behind and slow adopters of wanting to change and add technology. Some of them, and especially if like they're family owned. I mean, it's tough because what works, what the generations before did to get you there, it's hard to want to change any of that because it's worked. Well, at some point,
this way for
right?
60
Yeah,
years.
exactly. I mean, and they just they're slow to want to adopt a new process of giving up the dare I say the Rolodex, but you need to get things in the cloud. You need to get things so that no matter who's there now, some can always pop in and that data is still available.
There's a big fear of that, putting data online. And we still have generations that we live with and work with today that don't want to use a credit card on the internet.
Right. Oh, yeah. I mean, and that's definitely that older gen that's worried about that, worried about their phone getting stolen, and,
They won't sign a document.
Electronically,
yeah. Even if they have the ability, they don't have the desire.
Yeah,
So
which is
we cater to all of them, but that's a challenge in my marketplace, and I'm sure it's a challenge. Just you have to try and help people see the value in that.
Right. Well, absolutely. I mean, if they have all this investment into their warehouse, their machinery, automation within their warehouse, and manufacturing facilities, but then they fall short on wanting to not give marketing enough of that automation and inspiration and investment, to keep those machines running. And in some cases, they're lucky because they can't even keep up. They may be a few years already backlogged, but sooner or later the backlog is going to fall off. So what happens then? Now you're chasing. You don't want to be chasing. You want to be prepared. You want to be proactive. You want to make sure things are in place to take those next steps forward. With growth.
One of that makes me think at one of our conventions, Gary Keller was talking about being ahead, and he was speaking specifically to technology and a CRM and systems and our website and what they're developing within their own. It's Keller Williams, centric.
Yep.
It's independent. It's not coming from a third party. It is Gary Keller's creation, and he was speaking to once you're so far ahead, there is no catch up.
Right.
No matter how hard someone works or how fast they run at something, if you're already ahead of that,
just not enough time.
There is no catch up. So staying ahead of that curve. And I think what you're speaking to with is telling a story.
Yeah.
How do you tell that in a manufacturing company? How do you even tell that story with new businesses and new machines?
Yeah.
And I struggle with that because we look at everything we do and things that we change, ways to make our businesses better, ways to improve customer service, ways to improve search engines. And I fail at telling a story so that the people see that we do that. I'm doing it all, but I fail at showing them.
Right. And sometimes when you're so close to it too, it's hard to get that story out because you don't think it's relevant. But to a prospect, it is relevant. So don't fall short.
It is. And I am a professional real estate agent running a team, and I am really great at real estate. I'm really great at negotiations. I'm really great at my job. I'm not a content creator.
Right.
And how do I balance? What do I do?
Well, that's where you have help. You know, you have help in the office. You feed the information. Here's what I'd like to say, and then someone helps put that content, like I said earlier, distribute it out on the platform that you're going to utilize as your main, your main goal or main outlet.
Right.
So, and your case, social media is, very, very big, and also too, it's, searchability. So, SEO comes in place. Content comes in play, with your exposure, but social media for the most part is where you're going to gain traction, and that's what you want, traction. And a lot of times just people, they don't want to take that next step, but that next step is, again, getting you out of the comfort zone. It's a gutsy move because it's an investment. You don't want to spin your wheels and waste time, but yet not doing it, is almost worse.
Well, it costs you exponentially more.
Right.
And what you guys just had a moment talking about was what's a challenge, and 2025, how's it different than 2024? And I can just tell from 2 decades now of branding a concept of mortgage banking, being an entrepreneur, buying real estate, how do you scale it? And that's the theme. It's thematic to everything that I've been doing now for 26 years or more. The challenge to that, what you just mentioned, was Google Analytics and paying attention to the metrics that are actually working, and what most, as we have our private conversations, drinking a beer or, a coffee or whatever it is that we're talking about. And the moment in time is keeping people consistently doing the be repetitive and never deviate, but then how do they continue to spend more and why? Yeah. And the disconnect typically is they're not tracking their spend.
No.
And because they're not tracking their spend, one of your challenges that I consistently hear is my budget. What's my budget? Why am I spending this much money? And the reason why. And what you've been able to do, at least for me, extremely well, is answer that question because of data. And I'm a data guy. I'm a data nerd. I can't stop looking at it. That's why I was wagging my tail this morning. I was pumped up. I found something.
Yeah.
And so but it was data. It was the numbers. It was the metrics that I was paying attention to. And so if I can just give you a shout out to being repetitive with the brand, is it Parker Hannifin?
Yeah.
How long has that company been your partner?
Since 2005.
Since 2000. So for 20 years, they have consistently stayed through catalog this and employee that and Rob Palowit's idea here and rebranding of this. And it's a 20-year run. And those conversations happen. Exactly.
Yeah.
Those conversations happen relatively easy. Because it's been 20 years, but they're also not easy, but they happen. You can get so much more accomplished in a short period of time because you've got 20 years under your belt.
Right.
And that's a testament to how you supply the data to consistently run the brand and what are the metrics behind it and why it makes sense. So keep doing it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And we try to, and sometimes it's like you can have a data overload, it could be too much. So we try to start that report with metrics, or with some key insight, metrics, and just say, all right, the whole report's, after this first page. You can look at it if you want. We're not going to go, page by page. Here are the key things we need to look at. We have an uplift here, we get a downlift there. We got to maybe update this, title or heading or add all together because it's now, it's not working, so we got to be able to pivot because it's not always going to be perfect. So we just want to recognize something quickly so we can make that change and pivot to something where it's going to maybe help it get back up into the green, the green area.
So does someone ever hand you a business card or you see a marquee on a sign, you think, oh, no.
What do you mean? We're not going to work together? Or,
no, just like they did it. It's all wrong. They did it wrong.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, gosh, the one year, it was kind of interesting with the chamber. We did like a live brand analysis, on stage, and that's tricky because you don't want to insult someone. but yeah, I mean, it's at times you look at something and you scratch your head. You're like, man, how have they gotten as far as they have with this, with this look, and it's just like a plain thing, and but some things, again, probably with them, it's been a relationship, but a kind of a dying breed is like some of these outside sales reps or manufacturers reps, that no one's replacing them. So how are you going to replace all that intel they have in their head? Because they're still old school using, pen and paper, and you need to kind of transition them to the next, phase where you're going to have someone younger taking over. Well, how are they going to teach them and learn the accounts without anything on the computer? You know what I mean? So there's things like that we run into.
A distinctive approach to passive income with luxury vacation rentals.
For more information, check out our website, quinvestors.com. What's a mistake that you see people making?
That's a loaded question there, I think, because there could be numerous things, that could, I don't want to say mistake. It's all relative to their business and the category or the industry they're in, because certain industries are going to do better in doing certain things, so off the cuff, I don't know. I mean,
let me interject. I'll see, and then maybe something will. I see some real estate agents creating too many calls to action, whether it's a postcard or some kind of mailing piece. It's, call for this, email me here. Here's my website. Here's my social. It's like too many things. And you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I once took a class somewhere, and the recommendation was one call to action, because when people have too many calls, they don't do anything. Okay. And you want them to do something. So tell them what you want them to do and where you want them to go. But too many calls, they'll do nothing, which I do translate to the real world. I have this saying that when people don't know what to do, they do nothing.
Well, it's like when you look at a menu in a restaurant. If it's like 20 pages, you're overwhelmed. It's like, how do you pick something?
I don't. I just tell them to bring me something.
Yeah. I mean, it's just tough. Yeah, you just customize your own thing. I think, looking at too many CTAs could be confusing. Sure. I mean, and that's the whole thing. When you look at some of the mistakes I've seen is like someone doing maybe some digital ads. And so you click an ad. So it's maybe for, you want a black coffee mug. Okay. So you see an ad for a black coffee mug. You click that thinking it's taking you a website or how, where you can buy a black coffee mug.
Yeah.
Well, instead they just take them to a homepage, and you're like, all right, wait. Now you forget what the heck you even clicked on, because there's not relative information after that click. Okay. So to your point, I did do something off one click, but what the landing page was and the result wasn't correct, because it should have been specific to that ad that I clicked on. And then again, to your point now, I would say it's okay to have multiple CTAs as long as it's the same, call to action, same CTA. So if it's a button here, buy now, if it's at the top of the page, as they scroll down, because maybe there's different colors or whatever, there's still another CTA at the bottom of the screen, but it's going to the same place.
Yeah. The TikTok shop has mastered that call to action. Yeah. I see someone demoing a product. Right. I want it. I click buy now. It takes me to the TikTok shop cart, and then I Apple Pay. I think it's literally 2 or 3 clicks.
Right.
It is so dangerously easy to buy products. And I think that would be a great concept to explore with how do we help that type of a system integrate with our businesses to make our clients' experience that easy.
Well, right. And we have Amazon to thank, because they've made shopping experience so easy, quick, and a frictionless type environment and experience. So, but everyone thinks that can, again, be easy to implement.
It sounds
Millions
so
of
easy.
dollars made it.
Yeah, exactly.
On a build out.
Can you create for me, push button, realtor, and then I show up at your door.
Right.
And along those lines, I was thinking about what you were just mentioning a moment ago with the TikTok shop, the frictionless, the call to action, Amazon, and in following some of these influencers and just being a consistent theme, a consistent message. And his thought of, along what Kay was asking you, what's going to happen in 25. He didn't say 25, but he said right now there's a transition that's going on from looking at still images and buying a belt or buying a black coffee mug to live shopping.
Yeah.
And the TikTok shop has become live shopping. It's how they put the belt together. It's done. And then, oh, by the way, this belt's $25.
Right.
And boom, you can buy it. And so his thought process on the next thing, if you will, is live shopping. And so I don't know if that would work in real estate, but I'm sure there's a lineage there that we could figure out. That'd be pretty awesome.
Yeah, there's something. I mean, there's automatic home evaluations, which are honestly pretty crappy.
Yeah.
It's it's like putting in a height and weight or a height and saying this is how much you weigh. Like it's just not accurate. Can't see the inside of the house, doesn't know the updates, doesn't know the neighborhood. You can't do any of that. So you still need a human to show up, but like then how quickly, if you push, could we be there? Or how quickly could we get you that data that you need?
Right.
Really quickly. It's not that difficult.
Well, we have some of that we're getting ready to do with our personal real estate and then real estate for the fund, co-investors, with video and pictures, lifestyle photos, and people imagining themselves in the space because there's people in the space.
Right.
And
that's the newest thing with
really pushing
short-term rentals.
Yeah.
Especially with co-investors, that's going to be a theme that we consistently tell that story across all of
because
our
everyone now wants an experience.
Right.
No matter what it is, they want to have an experience. And so showcasing people jumping into the pool, not just the pool,
Right.
is the experience.
Yeah.
And that's the highest and best use. And what are most people are coming to that home for, or to that area for, and then you market to that group primarily.
And that's you're seeing that too with some of these national ads that they have playing with VRBO or Airbnb showing you.
That's right.
Why go to a hotel when you can have an experience in one of our properties?
Yeah.
And so that definitely fits that idea. And it's right. And I love remember that was the first thing I told you when I looked at that One Yonder property where they had like the kids playing hoops and.
Right.
Remember I said, I go, man, that's so cool. They actually have people in the photos. That was the first time I saw that. Yes. And that's probably why they're such a great partner for co-investors, is that they have that forward thinking, that they're bringing to the table with approaching, luxury rentals. And I think that's a cool thing to implement for co-investors is making sure any of those photos you're showing properties, you have some people in them. And, again, it makes it a little more complex because you got to get releases and stuff like that. But unless you're just seeing backs of heads and stuff.
We can hire models or something, but something that we really enjoy doing and that we're pretty good at is finding the missing market and doing what nobody else is doing. Mm-hmm. Everybody just follows suit, like, oh, this is how we do things. So then that's what they do. And then we come in and we look at things and say, we're not doing it like everybody else. We need to be different. And how are we different? Lifestyle photos are different than everybody else. I noticed in certain markets in different areas of the country, the way that the Airbnbs, short-term rentals are advertised and decorated are the same in a pocket.
Right.
They're this way in Arizona, and that's not the way they present themselves in Florida. Oh. And it's like a trend. So specifically, what I noticed in Arizona was someone probably started this and then everyone just kept going on. They blew up really fun, big pool toys, like the gigantic pink swan.
Yeah.
And then they would float it in the pool. And the wall that looks like grass and then the little neon that says you're beautiful.
Right.
So that caught on in Arizona. And listing after listing after, I'm like, oh my God, it's the same pink swan again.
Right.
And I've never seen it in Florida.
Yeah.
Not one time.
Wow.
And a benefit to traveling and having diversity with the fund is we can bring some of those things. And I know now what we're not doing in Arizona after research. I might bring a little Arizona to Florida and vice versa.
Right.
So constantly trying to recreate what's new and exciting. Right. And I think the people of Arizona are tired of the pink swan.
Did you ask them that? You got to do a focus group.
Kind of like the people in Florida are tired of the humidity.
Yeah, right. Well, they want that dry heat. That's what they need out in Arizona.
It's a warm hug.
Yeah.
Dry heat, warm hug.
And to your point, Kate, too, that's, a differentiator, disrupting the marketplace. How many times do you hear that?
A lot from this guy.
Disrupt
a market disruptor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's what you try to do. I mean, and again, gutsy move because it might not work always, but you have to try it to see, because that could be the next thing that, takes you up to.
True. And in my world, it's a lot of like, oh, what does she think she's doing now?
Yeah.
Well, hopefully.
Right.
Rising to the top.
Right. Yeah. Be the trendsetter and instead of the follower. And again, that's makes you have that differentiator that, someone may say, you know what, I want her to represent, the property we have.
Did you
to
have
buy
some
herself.
thoughts with that? You did a little bit of a rebrand recently.
Yeah. So we did, we did the rebrand there, the Palo Creative, and we tied that into the 25th year. Let's freshen it up. Let's try and, look a little more cleaner, a little more national, if you will. If you look at a lot of the bigger brands, the logos get a little more simplified.
Yeah.
Pretty straightforward, one or two colors. That's what we wanted to basically do. And I just, again, the logo, I had the shield that I hand drew back in '98. It's like, all right, well, I love the shield and all, but let's go ahead and, let's just pass on that. And it's tough.
Update. So you dropped the shield, you changed the color.
Yeah, changed the colors. We went with red and gray. I like a bright red now and a little more vibrant. And kind of did away. I started with complementary colors, with orange and blue. And it's just like, just kind of done with that now.
Well, it's good because Brandon picked it up.
Yeah, Brandon picked it up. Yeah, with Corbett Consulting.
Yes.
Corbett Consulting, he basically said, all right, I like those colors you have and put them on mine. Yes. I'm like, all right, well, good timing because I'm getting rid of them.
I bought a watch with Navy blue and orange too.
Davis force the rebrand?
Yeah.
Like, well, Brandon took my color.
Get away from that guy.
Yeah. So that's what we did with Corbett Consulting, is it gave him those complementary colors and a little different, a little more rusty than what our orange was, and darker blue than what our blue was, and darker gray.
Almost black. Yeah.
So you've referenced a few moves.
Few moves. There's nonstop moves.
Do
I feel like.
Do you have a gutsiest move that you look back and think, holy smokes?
No, I think anytime you look at your business, you got to be willing to take risk. It's risk and reward, and sometimes that risk just doesn't pan out like you thought it would.
Was it a failure?
I wouldn't say necessarily a failure. It just didn't work like I thought it was going to work. So, again,
if you recover, really, it's not how you fail; it's how you recover. I'm sure you learned something from it.
Yeah, sometimes I always go with my gut intuition, but when you can match the gut intuition with some of that intel or some of the research, that makes it a little more powerful. And and being a business owner, being entrepreneurial minded and fresh with ideas, sometimes you may jump before you see how far you got to jump. That's what you do. But sometimes the calculated risk is a little better at times to be conservative. But again, it's tough because I do like to make gutsy moves because you have to, and to be in business, you can't sit idle. You sit idle, you're just gonna fall off and get stale, So that's the biggest thing with the whole intent of this podcast. I would say is you always got to make gutsy moves in your personal life and business life, because otherwise you just will be stagnant. You won't advance. You won't learn anything. You won't.
It's calculated risks.
Yeah,
it is. But by sharing some of our failures, we can help others maybe not make the same mistake.
Sure.
It's hard not to sound like a know-it-all when you do it. And some people just need to fail to be able to learn to get to the next step.
Yeah.
It's part of that process. But we've also made some moves that we look back on and think, I can't believe we actually did that.
Yeah. Well, again, that's the benefit of going through that. You say, oh my gosh, we did that and it actually worked, and sometimes you surprise yourself, and other times when you do something and it doesn't work out. And again, I don't want to say, I never want to say like failure per se, but it didn't work out. You still learn from something, and
that's when you learn the most.
Right. And that's actually what, known fact is that you learn most from those types of things that you don't, have success with. And COVID was kind of that time. For me, that was, just a lot of craziness that we had to deal with. And I hate to even bring it up again because, it's tiring, but it just...
What happened?
Well, just, trying to, you don't have a manual. So you have work, you don't have work. Things are,
Did businesses pull out? Did they cut their budget?
Well, that, but then you pick more up and then you're like thinking, okay, and, it's going to make a big run. You ramp up with personnel and and maybe it doesn't work out because that, there's no people saying no, but there's no people saying yes sometimes, so again, maybe preliminary, was maybe too soon to ramp up with help, but then you're like, wow, there's some available talent, and let's
so you're not snatch them up,
right,
bring
right.
them close.
But then if you don't have
Reinvest,
work for
you got to
them and you're
reinvest the
paying
business.
them,
Yeah, you got to reinvest the business, and sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But that's just, again,
Yeah, when
honesty.
you're a business owner and you're making payroll and you're paying the bills and you're getting all of those behind the scenes and they don't see that,
Right.
Where sometimes in those hard times, there's very little, if not no money in an account,
Yeah.
or you skip a paycheck or two.
Right.
Or
Well,
more
fortunately,
to-
never did that, But you mean personally?
Yeah,
Oh,
personally.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, sometimes I've had to make those decisions where I'm going to take less to make payroll.
That's the whole thing with having the burden of running a business is you have that weight on your back, and people don't necessarily understand the who, what, or why, and to be honest with you don't necessarily want to throw that in their face either. I mean, because it's not their responsibility; it's yours. You own the business, and that's they're just part of the team. And they need to just worry about what they have in front of them on their hit list, and that's what you want to focus on anyhow. I don't want to ever burden my team with the responsibilities per se what I have as a business owner, but it is helpful if they have some appreciation and understanding and patience, because sometimes you got to work through things in a small business. That's the whole thing. You can't snap your fingers and make everything right, and make moves that they would like to see as much as you'd like to see them too. It's it's going through the process. It takes time, and there's plenty of things that I'd love to implement that you just you can't do it at this point in time, but you're going to try and get to it. It's on the list. It's something we want to achieve. It's the next moves we want to make. But it takes time, and it's just that's probably one of the frustrating things of being a business owner, of wanting to make a gutsy move, but yet you have constraints of uncontrollable constraints and factors that you can't make that gutsy move.
Sometimes that's true, but I also think it's a lot of excuses.
Yeah.
I do.
Could be.
I think people will make up as many as excuses as they can to not do something, and then fall back on the I couldn't because.
Yeah.
And I think mostly the because is a bunch of bull.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's human.
That's what I think.
We talk about that in Roundtable 12, my entrepreneurial think tank, which is all business owners and what you're going to do to grow the business and how you're going to grow the business, and much to what you just talked about. And recent conversations, overstaffing and being ready for that
big run,
that big run.
Yeah.
And it was just, they were there and it didn't happen. And fortunately they got some time to spend with some of those employees that weren't the right fit. And so it was a blessing in disguise, because that work did not come through. Those employees and what they thought they were getting with that employee didn't really work out. So they were able to rebalance and, choose your words,
right?
Reposition themselves to continue to propel forward. And so they've just, gotten rid of that element and brought in new elements.
Right.
Gave them time to figure it
Speaking
out.
personally to running a business and being an entrepreneur, I don't know how this works with the universe, but I've experienced it personally time and time again, that when you go out on a line and take on something that seems to be almost too much, somehow it ends up working out because you end up running faster, if you will. Like, I don't know sometimes where that, I just know that what I need to do more of the thing to generate more income, to do the next thing. I don't know how it happens, but it does.
Well, what you focus on expands. It's a bold law.
It is a bold law. Here I'm rubbing off on you with all this KWs, with all
Or
this
vice
KW
versa.
stuff.
I mean, it's just part of...
When I hired someone, I really couldn't afford to hire them, but I ended up, now I have somebody that I have to pay. So I ended up doing more business because I knew what I had to do to now make this thing work. And it started very little on a very small personal scale for me after getting divorced and not having enough money really to support myself, that I wasn't going to fail. Failure was not an option. I needed to make these payments. I needed to support the kids. And I was going to run to that.
Mm-hmm.
instead of going the reverse and saying, well, this is all that I have.
Right.
So I will live small.
Right.
I went to live to my normal standard and then made up for it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the power of going out on the line, not making the excuse, and just launching into what it is that you want.
It's making your either recognizing an opportunity or making your own opportunity by reinventing yourself, getting into an industry that, was going to be the right move for you, and that could easily, went the other way, but you didn't let it go the other way, because you were motivated and focused to get that to work and happen, and hats off to you on that. And that's a thing you celebrate, but you don't, we never pat ourselves on the back. That's one thing we don't do, but you do want to look in, that's biggest thing is, the windshield's a lot bigger than the rear view mirror, but, you want to know where you came from and always keep the key things from that moving forward as you
took the
grow.
words right out of my mouth. Reflection. We as entrepreneurs spend very little time reflecting on what we've actually accomplished, and when you do that and what you actually see that you have accomplished, it kind of is invigorating, because the things that you've done, you just, okay, what's next, or how can I expand on something that we're already doing? Again, reflection is pretty great.
Yeah.
Especially, what is today? January 2nd, 2025.
Yeah. It's crazy to think.
We got a big windshield in front of us.
Big windshield, new year, fresh, first day here or second day, the new year, we're ready to rock and roll.
Do you have some business goals for 25?
Yeah, we gotta roll them out yet. We have some things transitioning, but
anything you want to shout out into the universe?
Not yet. I'm gonna keep that tight to the vest.
Here's me trying
tight to the vest. No, I mean, realistically, it's some of the stuff probably we probably Q3 into Q4, paying more attention to, and it's just like let's use that propelling us into the next year and whatnot. Some of the relationships and some of the things that are differentiators for us, we want to or definitely want to play up and explore more.
Yeah.
So
Brandon and I have a 2025 goal to buy one more property personally.
Okay.
So I'll speak that out. That's where we're really focused on getting that done. It's going to happen.
That might happen in January.
It might. We launched our first property into existence in Arizona. That's with Quinvestors. So that property, we've been really, really focused on getting that money spent for our investors so we can start to return some capital with that first property in Arizona. And business-wise, we've got some goals for the team. We want to do over 100 units this year. Volume is up. Units are down. Mm-hmm. The moral of the story is it's okay, but where are we going to go from there? We need to expand. Which we will, and I'd like to hire some more new talent at the Creative Ones this year and expand my social media platform.
Okay,
Speak to you about that.
Yeah.
And what do you want to do for 25, Brandon?
Just making shit up.
The sign says it right there.
The sign says it.
Yeah.
No, the Building Wealth clients are something that has really been a pleasure to work with and get into building their maps with them, building wealth with real estate. And honestly, I eat, sleep, and breathe Quinvestors. I was doing that last night. That was part of my wag the tail moment this morning before Kate had her coffee. And I really honed in on some spots in Maricopa County and Phoenix area, Phoenix market, with some up and coming real estate spots. When you're the 5th largest market in the country, you think, well, what's still up and coming in Phoenix? But in a growing economy, there's always the element of what's next. We just got done talking about that from a personal and professional perspective, what's next. So for us, Quinvestors launching in June of 24, we broke escrow in December of 24, and we're going to close our first property in January of 25. And we're going to launch it February 1st or sooner. We've got a lot of stuff going on in January. We'll be in Phoenix January 19th to February 10th, specifically working on that market. So I think those are some pretty lofty goals
They are. Raise more capital to buy more properties so we can keep this momentum going.
That's right.
And showcase to our investors what we're doing.
Yeah.
Back to marketing and telling the story and being able to share that grind for us that we love every day. How do we show people that that's what we're doing? So we're working on that as well.
The hardest part, you've already been getting done, and
Foundation set.
Yeah. So now it's just taking that and let everyone know about it. Again, further the information, get that out there, the content, sharing that content so everyone can see. Seeing is believing. Unfortunately, in some cases, but the way you can get them to see it is by talking about it and showing pictures and again just being repetitive on that message and I think sooner or later then that's where you start to get people to convert.
Well, I think you've got a lot of right people in the right seats.
Yeah, well, we're getting there. It happens, and that's one thing about change. It's always happening. The only consistent thing is change, and you got to embrace it. And I've embraced it for going on 26 years now, because each year is different. Every year is different, and you can't predict things that are going to happen. And all you can do is try and position yourself and put yourself in the right position to be ready for any change and be ready to pivot. And our business is competitive. I mean, your business is very competitive too,
Extremely competitive. Yeah. There's a huge launch of real estate agents that got their license during COVID because they had time. And of course, it's easy.
Yeah, right. Easy, quote everything.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And in the state of Ohio, our license cycle is every 3 years. And so we saw a huge number of people not renew their license, which, 2020, and then now there's still a couple, but that 2023, 24 recycle of renewing your license, we did lose a lot of those new ones. And it's not as easy as it looks. It's like getting on a train, slow at the beginning, and your brand to being consistent is really challenging for people to get started. It's a great industry. I would not choose anything else. I truly really love the career choice that I've made.
Well, that's awesome. Then so there's opportunity for you. So there's less license holders out there. So there's more opportunity to get some more listings.
And then with the creative ones, if there are agents that are struggling because it is difficult, we've created a brand for them to be able to work under us. And I'm able to leverage my wealth of knowledge and team systems and structure to help them launch into a career.
Yep.
And that's more of a focus for me moving into the next 5-year phase, is to bring in some amazing talent and help them leverage what I've spent also 22 years creating.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of
plan.
It's a different business model than just get your license and go sell some houses.
Right. Yeah. Awesome.